Good evening. I'm Judith McCrell, and I'm delighted to introduce you to this evening's Insight, which is supported by Rolex. This is the second of our 3 Insight evenings in which we're exploring the creation of Christopher Wheeldon's new 3-act ballet, Like Water for Chocolate. It's been inspired by the best-selling novel by Mexican author Laura Esquivel, who joined us for the first of these insights on Monday to discuss the journey by which her novel has been translated into dance. That journey has come with certain challenges. Laura's novel is set on a traditional Mexican ranch. It's crammed with dramatic incident, and it also has a deep vein of magic running through it. Basically, the novel's heroine, Tita, has a mysterious gift by which all the emotions she feels, the fear she has for her tyrannical mother, the passionate love that burns between her and her brother-in-law, Pedro, all these feelings somehow enter the food that she cooks and are then transmitted to those who eat it, often with chaotic and delirious results. But as complex as the novel sounds, it does occupy a rich poetic world which lends itself wonderfully to dance. And tonight we'll be exploring how the music and the design elements of this production have helped bring that world to the stage. So let's start by inviting Christopher Wheeldon and composer Joby Talbot to the stage. Please welcome them. Now, Chris, we discussed the origination of this ballet just 2 days ago, and the fact that you've been working very closely on it, both with Laura herself and with the Mexican conductor, Alondra de la Parra. So we'd like to hear about them, but also, first, can you tell us briefly how you first brought Joby into the project?
Never met him before.
Just standing on the corner.
You know, my relationship with Joby, our collaboration is has been so sort of married and joyful that I sort of now feel like he gives me the confidence to launch into these big complex narratives, because I know what he's going to be able to do is create music that describes character, that describes situation. He's not afraid to sort of dive into some quite complicated storytelling. And so I can't imagine actually doing this ballet without Joby, to be honest with you.
So Joby, we're going to hear some of that music today. You brought some musicians with you, but just before we hear them, could you tell us a little bit about how you prepared for writing the score and maybe some of the challenges that you faced?
Sure. I mean, so we did Alice together, and then we did Winter's Tale together, and I think we've been kind of developing a way of telling stories through music and dance and theatrical design. I feel that this is the next kind of chapter on that journey we've gone on together. And with this one, we've chosen something that is even more kind of dramatically complicated. And I think the biggest challenge when you're writing the score for a story ballet is to try and give the choreographer the platform on which to do his or her amazing work and something that the dancers can dance to, but which also tells the story, and not tread on its toes, but allow it to do its thing. And you're constantly trying to kind of gauge how much storytelling you need to do, how specific you need to be in the storytelling, in the composition, and how much it needs to be kind of left to the dance. And the way we always start is we work on a scenography together, and we talk about, you know, like, is this like a music-heavy moment of dramatic storytelling, or is this more of a dance, or is this Bob Crowley coming in and doing some, and but of course this is all years in advance of me seeing a single step, so like I'm stuck at home wondering, is this going to work? And I've been wondering, is this going to work? In this case, because of the pandemic intervening for 3 years. 3 years of wondering, is this going to work? And then coming into the studio the other day for the first time and seeing dancers dancing to this music was the most unbelievable relief, because it does work. Just, phew. It's a bit late now if it doesn't.
We actually formulate quite a rigid structure, story structure, and timings of how long we think each thing should last. And then Joby writes his score, and he puts where he is writing the dramatic moments into the score. So it'll say, you know, Tita cries into the batter, the guests taste the cake. Quite often, where I feel it lands somewhere around there, but not necessarily exactly on the point that Joby's written it. So, and that's what's wonderful about Joby, is that he gives me those anchors when I need them, but he's also writing so fluidly around them that I can go against it, I can go with it. It's
I think that gives it like a three-dimensional quality, because it's not, you know, it's not slavishly doing exactly what the music tells you to do at any given moment.
Yeah.
I remember reading somewhere that Stephen Sondheim said that he has in his mind, no one will ever see it or know what it is, but he has in his mind a production of the show he's writing. And just having a sense of what it could be on stage, even though it's not going to be that, it gives you the kind of license to structure it and make some kind of sensible. But in answer to your question that you asked half an hour ago, I haven't answered.
Well, we can come back to that because we want to hear the music. So I'm going to leave the floor to you, Joby, to tell us a bit more about that, and welcome percussionist Rob Farah with Eliza Marshall on flutes.
Thank you. Hello, percussionist Rob Farah. Is that your full name, or is that
my middle
brackets
name? Yeah.
And flautist Eliza Marshall. Rob and Eliza, I've known and worked with for years and years and years. And you may recognize them from Winter's Tale, where they were both in the onstage band. Eliza was playing the bansuri so beautifully, especially at the beginning of Act 2 of Winter's Tale, underneath the amazing tree that Bob designed. And Rob was messing around on drums. I
played drums equally beautifully, though, didn't I?
Yeah. Very lyrical playing. So when I was thinking about how to give this piece a kind of a Mexican DNA, now I'm answering Judith's question of yesteryear. I wanted to make sure that the seed from which this big, enormous three-act piece grew had at the center of it some kind of Mexican DNA. And then I hoped that if I followed it where it wanted to grow, with the help of Alondra and the other Mexican musicians and advisors we've had on the project, we could do something that seemed appropriate and respectful to both the book and to this amazing gift to the world that is Mexican culture and Mexican music. And my kind of like germinal seed idea came when we were in Mexico City, and I was wandering around the town on my own the first few days and just soaking up the atmosphere and listening to all the music I could find. And I went to the Anthropological Museum, which is, if you ever have a chance to go, one of the great museums of the world, and saw this incredible art and artifacts and lots of musical instruments from pre-Columbian Mexico. And then, sort of exhausted with this kind of overload, I went and lay down in a cool little nook by the lake in the middle of the courtyard there. And I heard this extraordinary noise that I'd never heard before. It was like some weird bird song from 1,000 years ago was like filtering, and I couldn't work out where it came from. And then it took me some time, literally, but there was a sculpture of like a conch shell on a little island in the lake, and it seemed to be coming out of that, and it was. And they had in there a recording playing of an ancient Mexican flute. Now, a lot of, as I understand it, a lot of the music of the Native American people in South and Central America was very inspired by nature. So the percussion instruments are kind of recreating the nocturnal sounds of insects chirping, of frogs, and the flutes are very much making the sounds of birdsong. So I made a recording on my phone and came back and I called Eliza. I said, "What is this thing that I was hearing?" And she said, "It's an ocarina, you idiot." and so it is. And I said, "Have you any ocarinas?" And she said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do. And look, you have some there. Look, an ocarina."
Yes.
So again, I didn't know any of this. Ocarinas can be, these ones are pottery, yeah?
So these, yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, these are little clay ocarinas. You can get lots of different types, and I think the ones that we first looked at when you sent me that amazing little recording were some wooden ones, which you may see children often have as toys.
The shape, like the more shaped like
yeah.
that, yeah.
And actually, they kind of originate from what they think were sort of old toys and sort of artifacts in a way. They were just small, either wooden or pottery ocarinas.
And they would have looked like birds or animals.
Exactly.
And they have, and each one, I suppose, is tuned slightly differently, and they don't play all the notes that you might want. How many notes can you get out of that?
Don't. So you can kind of get about 11 notes, but obviously through what we work on together, we add a few.
Well, she tells me what the notes it can play, and then I write something that has loads more notes than that, and then miraculously she sends back a recording of them actually.
What's nice is to try and use these sorts of instruments in a non-conventional way to how they're usually used. So I think that's what we did with Winter's Tale as well, isn't it?
Yeah, with the Bansuri, because that doesn't have all the notes either, does it?
That doesn't either. So it's essentially just they're diatonic instruments. But actually, once Joby sends over what he wants, of course, there's lots of chromaticism, or some of it anyway, which is really good, because it's nice to try and push the boundaries of the instruments, I think, within this sort of context. So,
can we hear what it sounds like?
So this was the sort of sound that Joby was sending over. This one I love because it's really resonant. We've got a slightly higher one.
Yeah, what's the high one?
You've got about 1,000 different fingerings to try to make the different notes work, so they're in work in progress at the moment. And this one's much more piercing. Obviously, it's much smaller. It's kind of like the little piccolo. But what's really lovely is that they can be quite expressive. When your music is so expressive, it's great to even just sliding compared to like the conventional Western flute. You can slide between the notes, which again is just really lovely. You don't have keys on it, which is a Western flute player.
Yeah, so with the Western flute, it's just open or closed.
Yeah.
But you can slide your finger.
You can slide,
off.
so you can get, and probably for you as a composer as well, it kind of adds little textures, doesn't it? Kind of weird quarter tones and things that you don't always want, but
no.
Yeah.
So this is a cedar flute, yeah?
This is a cedar flute, yeah. Essentially, they're known as the Native American Indian flutes, but this is from Ebb's flute.
From Ebb's flute.
So not quite as.
But this is much quieter, yeah?
It's much quieter, but what's lovely is it's very different to the Bansuris that we used before, which are Indian flutes, as in from India. So these actually, the main scale of these is a pentatonic scale as well, but not in Joby's music.
No, so that's gorgeous. So I was looking all the time for things that I could reference to Mexican traditional cultures and music that didn't sound like they'd been filtered through Hollywood. That's a thing in itself, but I wanted to get back to something that kind of predates that, something that felt more, from the heart. The story is all about the role of the kitchen, food, the woman's role at the heart of the family, the kind of ritualistic daily baking of the bread. And I was trying to find something that we could create our own kind of musical rituals. And percussion is hugely important in this as well. Rob and our friend Steve have come in to play kind of sort of drums, the kind of the sort of instruments that you wouldn't usually find in an orchestral percussion section. So tell us a little about these.
I mean, I've got a whole mixture of different sounds and some of the drums are headed like the conga here. You can see it's got a skin. The one thing that sort of joins all of these instruments together is that there are very few sort of plasticky manufactured instruments. This drum here, which is our whettle, is, I don't know if you can see, it's got an animal skin there. And it's a lovely, beautiful wooden instrument. This is one of my favorites. These literally grow on trees. This is the bean pod shaker.
And this is the icon of Mexican percussion instruments, isn't it? The teponazli.
So you can see it. Oops. It's like a log drum or a slit drum, which the log drum, for those of you who are fans of my work in The Winter's Tale, will know all about the crin drum that I play, which is like an African version of this. This particular one, the teponazli, is a sort of a much more melodic version.
So we're gonna try and play some of this. So you have to forgive us because we can't actually play it, but we're going to try to play it, and hopefully, when we play it wrongly and badly, it'll be thrilling. It'll be a thrilling experience for you because you'll see the work in progress, which is the idea. We're going to play some of the music from the end of the first scene in Act 1, which features Eliza on her ocarina. Here's your note. That's the other thing about the ocarina, is they're unforgiving. You make it sound beautiful. Okay, so here we go. Wish us luck. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that thrilling, gorgeous music, and can't wait to hear the whole score. But now we have some dancing. Chris, can you tell us what we're going to be seeing?
Sure. Today we are looking at we call it it's play within a play, but it's sort of ballet within the ballet. In Act 2, we go back and we sort of tell the story of Mama Elena, and it helps us understand how she's sort of become this tyrannical, rather violent mother who is denying Tita her love, that it's actually been continuing down the family line, that she was forbidden to marry the man that she loved. So this is, we call it Elena's story, and it comes out of Tita and Dr. John coming home. Tita's been taken care of by Dr. John. They come back to the family ranch. Mama Elena is lying in state, and the ranch workers, the people from the village, are all paying respect to her. And just sort of towards the end of that scene, there's a moment where, and Bob has designed something very magical, which I'm not going to give away, where she kind of sits up out of her own body, and the mourners actually become the characters from her past. So we get to see her in this sequence. We see her with her lover. We see the parents forbidding her and introducing the man that she is supposed to marry, and her disobeying and going back with the lover. They plan to leave. She's pregnant. They plan to leave, and the two brothers in the family intercept their journey and kill the lover, and she is then destined to be with the man that her parents want her to be.
Brutal
Pretty brutal.
tradition, yeah. Well, let's please welcome dancers of the Royal Ballet with Hannah Quinn on piano and assistants to the choreographer Jacqueline Barrett and Jason Fowler.
Okay, come on out, guys. I'm going to move these a little bit further forwards, because I think if we're here, Tom, you might be okay. I'm going to just check it out. Yeah, you're fine. So if we bring them down a little bit. Do we need a bit more space between the two in the middle? Or are we okay?
I think we're all right.
Would everyone just quickly lie down on their chair and just see if you've got space? Because this looks too close together. I think, Kevin, you're going to have to move back a bit. Yeah, move back a bit, Lucas. Ben, can you be as far that way as you can? That's it. Come back a bit, Tina. More. More. There we go. Come back, Lucas, a bit more. Perfect. Going to do that. Okay, so we are obviously going to simulate the sitting up out of the body, but that's where we're going to start. Laura Moreira is playing Mama Elena, and everyone else should become clear as we go, hopefully. We'll see. Do you guys want to come down here maybe for this?
Yeah.
Would love to.
Okay, so Hannah, where can we go from? 8 into the 6s? Are we all right to go from 8 into the 6s? Okay? And Well done, guys. Come back out. Good, good. They actually make it quite hard when they do it that well, because there's not really much for me to say, actually. I did just want to look at, are we wrapping around the wrist there at the end?
Yes.
With the ribbon? We are doing that.
And then,
Have you always kind of worked your way out of it?
but I'm not sure if it would work because I think I disengage this hand, but we can
Yeah.
try it without.
Can we see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. So,
Sorry.
take that side, yeah. Wrap around. I think it's better if we just keep it there, yeah, if we can.
And then the last one, can you just do the last one? Sorry. I think
Yeah, you've that's it. And then go.
shall I, because you wanted that shape.
Yeah, can you, is there any way that you can actually slide, or you're completely bound up with that hand? Is there any way that you can slide that hand down the ribbon so that so you go this way and then,
Yes.
yeah,
So this one comes loose at that point.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I do more of that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. As long as it doesn't look like you're reeling them in, because
Okay.
you've had it with them, actually.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as long as it's more about just the torture of the, yeah. So we've gone first one, that's it. Second one, and then going. That's good, yeah, lovely. Good, yeah, fab. And the only other moment we looked like we came a little bit of cropper. It's that tricky moment of Jo, you judging, right, the spacing of that, just the spacing of her when you've got her in the lift. For Tina to, yeah. And what's the count that we're stopping on there? Is that
3.
3? So let's see if we can just get this looking a bit cleaner. So should we do it with music? Let's go from Tina. Yeah, let's go from Tina and Ben. Thanks, Hannah. Straight on 9, 10, 11, 12. And
9, 10, 12, 1.
actually, let's stop there, thanks. What'd be nice, Tina, here is as you make that turn, which way are you bleeding?
Yeah, but it's fine.
Here,
Sure.
we've got a plaster.
Can we get him a little? Yeah.
We've got a plaster.
Is as you turn back, here to Ben, really, yeah, it's like you're calling for him. So you're rejecting that, and then you're calling for him. Yeah, lovely, thanks.
Sorry.
It's all right. Medical moment.
It's really not as bad as it looks.
Okay.
Quite a bit of skin off. Give
Okay,
us that
good.
wet bit.
One more time.
Give you my bloody...
Just give it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
My pleasure.
Ready, and
It's
9. So, are we going for... We're going for connecting on the 3. You're still too far away. Can you move in a little? It's because you can't see, can you?
Yeah.
Do we need to do it by marks so that we're... Can you see a mark?
I can just move a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the difficulty is that he's got a body in the way and I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
So we can't see each
Yeah.
other.
At the
if we
moment,
had a
I'm not
mark,
moving
that
at
would
all,
be
so I
easier.
can move a lot more than
But Tina, is there any way once you've left Ben that you can step in more?
I think
So-
Jo should come around just a little bit more with that foot. She's dodging a foot.
So maybe-
Allow to get in there. If
Turn
he could just
quicker.
turn a little bit sooner.
No, I think you're good. I think
Yeah.
if he turns quicker, moves in a tiny bit, you step in a little bit further. Let's just go for gold and hope for the best. Is this more than 9, 10, 11, 12? Can you just give me 9, 10, 11, 12?
It's a slow 4.
Oh, it's a slow 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, here we go. and 9, 10, 11, 12. That's it. There you go. 6, 7, 8. Good. Good. Okay, good. Well done. Yeah, that's it. So that's what we have to do there, just to really make that connection. Fab. All right, terrific, you guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, lovely work. Well done. Thank you, Hannah.
Now we're going to talk some more about the creative collaboration behind Like Water for Chocolate. Chris has not only been reunited with Joby for this ballet, but also with his long-term designer, Bob Crowley. And we're joined tonight by two of Bob's assistants, Associate Costume Designer, Lynette Mauro, and Associate Set Designer, Jamie Todd. Please welcome them all to the stage. Chris, when you first went to see Lara in Mexico with the idea of turning her novel into ballet, I think you already had Joby and Bob on side. Can you tell us a little bit about those early conversations between the three of you?
So we read the book together, and we sort of started to outline, or I started to sort of outline where I thought perhaps we could trim back a little bit, set up sort of a basic, very basic synopsis. But it wasn't really until we went to Mexico City and spent time together and with Lara that really started to take shape. We were there for about 4 days. I'd been the previous year, actually, and that's when she made me the delicious food from the book, and we connected, and she gave her blessing. And so it was really that trip, that second trip to Mexico City was really where we spent time. We spoke with Lara, then we'd go back to the hotel and we'd sit and sort of tried to figure out kind of where things would go, and then present that again to Lara. She came and spent, a lovely afternoon with us our last day at the hotel, and we sort of proposed. And she had some ideas here and there, but for the most part was very generous and very excited by what we were doing.
And Joby, we've talked a little bit about the role of Alondra de la Parra, who came in as musical consultant. Perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about how she worked with you on the score.
Well, Alondra's been this amazing result. Apart from being a wonderful colleague and friend, she's also an extraordinary conductor, and it's going to be such a thrill to have her conducting the premiere of this piece. I make these demos scene by scene, sent to Chris and get his reaction. Then I would also send them to Alondra, and I would get her feedback on them. And she put me in touch with some Mexican musicians, like the percussionists we already heard about, but particularly a guitarist called Thomas Barrero, who's also a composer, a wonderful guitarist, and just a wonderful human being all round. And we knew we wanted, it was one of the early decisions, we knew we wanted a guitar at the heart of this. It was such a quintessentially Mexican instrument, we wanted it at the heart of the instrumentation. And Thomas is actually coming over from Mexico to play in this first run. He's going to be on stage and in the pit, running between the two, playing. And between him and Alondra, I could get this feedback about, Alondra put it quite simply. She said, she was judging everything she heard in sort of three. Does it sound like Joby? Does it sound magical? Does it sound Mexican? And if it was at least one of those three things were good, she would let it go past. And every so often, I'd run into something. Because, like to my kind of uneducated Anglo-Saxon ears, something which sounds maybe appropriate turns out to be wildly inappropriate. And so I would rewrite it, which I was more than happy to do, because this whole creative process is by definition collaborative. Our collaboration, all our collaborations and collaborations with the players and the conductor and the musicians involved, that's the whole essence of the thing. That's what people will see on opening night, and that's why I love it so much.
In fact, it was interesting when we talked to Lara on Monday, she came back time and time again to this sense that there was this team working, and that's almost what thrilled her the most, that it wasn't just, you know, 2 or 3 big name stars. She just felt it was such a kind of collective enterprise that she loved. But we must move on to the design. Lynette and Jamie, can we just talk about the visual world that you two have been developing for the ballet with Bob? And Jamie, can we talk first about the staging?
Obviously, because Bob and Joby and Chris have worked together so often, it's really good. It's a really solid team. And we sort of have a little bit of a shorthand as to how we start, and we know roughly what spaces we use with just Tal and Alice. And so Bob wanted to add a little bit of the feeling of the book onto the stage, and he was really inspired by an architect called Louis Barragan. So there's lots of slabs and beams, and it's all about light play coming through different bits and pieces. Also, it lends itself to being huge, or it lends itself to being quite small, so you can change the space. And a lot of the parts in this ballet, you need a wide open space, or you need to kind of really bring it really tightly in and focus. So we started with that, and actually what you can see here is one of our storyboards, which ties in a little bit of the feeling of the Louis Barragan with the beams, because Bob felt it was really important, and it will go on with Natasha Katz, that we get a passing of time with light coming through beams. So that's where we were going with that. And we also wanted a good feeling of inside and outside. So you've got the mountains in the background if you want a big open space where you can close it right down, drop the beams in, and change the colours of the legs to create a different space. And then we can add all our little bits and pieces that come into that to help create the scenes.
We decided on no walls, so no heavy pieces of scenery, just using these beams, which actually they move, so they can go into different configurations, and then just moving. I think there are maybe 6 or 7 tables in the show.
Last count. Yeah.
And so it's really the tables, the light, and the beams that define the interiors.
I remember you and Bob talking at great length about the table at the heart of the family, and you know, everything happens on the table. You know, people eat, but people are born, and people die, and
the tables are the beds, and so we try to centre the whole show pretty much. We do have a couple of beds later.
And one of the themes of Act 1, at least, is the idea of this cloth that's being knitted. And Bob had this amazing idea of this cloth being knitted, and gradually over Act 1, this cloth rises up and creates a backdrop. And I went to Dieppe with some friends, and I went to an antique shop and found this. So we kind of started with this, and then we worked on it, we changed it, we developed it, and we ended up with a fantastic piece of scenery, which I'm very excited to see. And it's all about modern technology. This is all laser cut and very graphic, and I think the graphic style does help. It ties in with the architectural style of Louis Barragan, and it keeps everything nice and clean. And it's pretty dramatic, and it can also give you a large amount of space to still dance in, because apparently the dancing is still the most important thing.
So Lynette, can you talk us through the costume concept that you developed with Bob?
Yes, well, starting where Jamie started, really, we've all worked together so much now. We have a shorthand, don't we? And I think with this particular story, the difficulties were that it's incredibly naturalistic, against which the magic has to play against. And if you don't have the naturalism there for the magic to push against, the magic is somehow diluted, I think. And I think that's something that's very clear in Lara's book and in the film. And Bob was very conscious that he wanted to have those two things playing alongside each other. Colour is extremely important in the way that Bob started out, and all of the principal characters have their own colour palette, and they start off quite pale and they get darker as they move through the piece. And Christopher described Mama Elena to us as a bruise, which is the most beautiful description for colour.
Now, you talked with chuckles and raised eyebrows about the tables, but I wanted to ask Jamie a bit more about the props, because dancers notoriously have issues with props, and I wondered, you know, are there many props in this ballet? Are there particular issues with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Wheeldon ballet. There are always huge amounts of props. And it's not just providing, for example, a chair. It's providing a chair that is capable of being leaned on its side and then knocked over, and making sure that they're strong enough to survive. It's not just making a table, it's making a table that has a lot of tricks. There's a lot of magic, there always is in Chris's ballets. We've got various different tables with various different tricks and various different things that swap in and swap out. So you never have a prop that's just a prop. It always has to do something else as well. So
a bowl is just a bowl in this ballet, I will say that, and a spoon is just a spoon.
I was going to say, are there spoons?
There are spoons. We've tried to keep those things down to a minimum, because of course with a ballet set in a kitchen, you could have, you know, an endless array of pots and pans and knives and chopping boards, and so we've tried to keep that really, really down to a minimum. But yes, there are the tables that these guys have engineered are quite extraordinary and do quite simple but very magical things.
yes, and it's all to do with how fabulous the props department are as well, because you can come up with an idea and you're not sure about it, and they tidy up all the loose ends and they make something happen. And I mean, there's certain bits and pieces that we're really excited to see, aren't we, on stage, that I've been told not to say anything about by Bob. It's about the collaboration of this building. Everyone coming together, everyone's at the top of their game, and they know exactly what they're up to, and they can respond and just turn up with magic.
And I gather when Lara was in the building, she was extremely excited by the designs that she saw. You know, that must have made you feel good, you know, that the author herself embraced this visual world that you've been constructing.
Yeah, you took on a bit of a tour, didn't you?
I did. I took her through. We've created these storyboards for each of the characters to be a sort of shorthand for all of us when we need to find out something quickly about their looks. And I took her through all of those, and she has an extensive knowledge of textiles and a huge collection of Mexican and, well, worldwide textiles. I mean, you know, she said, when I come back, I want you to take me shopping, you know. I mean, it was amazing, actually. And she really understands very clearly the language of clothes and how important they are, and how you can tell a story with clothing. You know, it's evident in what she wears herself, you know. So it was a real pleasure to be able to show her that, and you know, and she loved. We've put one of the, probably my all-time ever favourite fabric in rehearsals on one of the dancers and a skirt, and she was so excited about that print. So yeah, no, it was lovely. It was a real pleasure.
Because the book is incredibly visual and physical, isn't it? I mean, just reading it for the first time, I was amazed how much of the story is carried through physical action, through physical description, you know, rather than, say, through conversation or interior monologue. I mean, that must have been really helpful to all of you, just in giving the cues for you how to make it work.
Yeah, I think landing on those anchors, the physical anchors, also helped us then refine the story and sort of know our path through this, because when you read it as a book, like any book, there's so much you give yourself so much time and so much space to absorb, and you know the author can put so much detail on the page, whereas when we're turning it into a dance, we don't have the luxury. I mean, even a play, you can say something, you can set a scene in one sentence, and then you're off. In a ballet, you have to physicalize that sentence, and that sentence can take, you know, 5/8 of music. So you have to really pare it down and know, kind of with a sort of laser-like focus, how you're getting from A to B to C to D, and really trim it down.
And you mentioned a little bit about Luke Hall's projections and Natasha Katz's lighting. Can you give us a little bit more information about what they're contributing?
Yeah, so Natasha will be very much helping us divide the space, and I'm sure you can all remember seeing the sort of almost Rothko-esque orange floor. Natasha will be helping create walls with light, interior, exterior. Also going back to the Barragan inspiration of the light hitting the stage. So we'll be creating architecture with light. And then Luke will be there to give some texture. There'll be some text that we'll use as it's coming from a narrative source. So we'll be using some text on the set. Elements, passing of time, sun rising and falling, moon rising. Sort of little bits that will integrate and still be quite graphic, I think, because the nature of the set is quite graphic. And what Lynette was saying, which is so interesting, is the kind of realism, naturalism of the clothing against the abstract nature of the set, I think is going to be very striking and actually help us really tell the story.
Okay, so it's a month to go till opening night, and I'm interested to know where you all are in the process. Joby, is all your work done? For instance.
It should be.
It should be.
It's my fault, actually, that it isn't, because Joby did deliver the scores quite a few weeks ago, and you know, it's a process, and sometimes there are a few too many bars, and sometimes there aren't enough bars. So there's been a little bit of give or take, and it's quite tricky because, of course, every time I ask him to change something, then they have to go back to the score and change it in the score, and it has to be, you know, reprinted. So
yeah, and the music is already with the musicians, so we have to like whistle, recall everything, make the changes, give it back, which is, you know, it's fun, isn't it?
It's
fun. It's one of those things. Anyway, but yeah, we have a read-through. Alondra's arriving on Monday. And we have and so is Thomas, and we have our first read-through with the orchestra on Tuesday of next week, and that'll be interesting. And then we have another couple of weeks, and then we're into orchestral rehearsal.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean this orchestra here is incredible. I mean, they're an incredible bunch of musicians, and I've already had some sessions with the percussionists, and you know what you just saw with Eliza and Robin, and. I'm really, 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 really excited. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Costumes, all done?
Oh yes, all finished. All lined up on a rail. No, we're still in the process of doing costume fittings and wig fittings and makeup tests, and there's a lot to knit together. We did 28 fittings today, 2 at a time. So yes, and on we continue. But we're not bad, actually. I had a moment of terrible panic about 10 days ago, but I feel it kind of beginning to settle down. So,
well, we all are so excited to see it, but sadly that's all we've got time for tonight. On Thursday, we'll be returning to the Limbury for the last of our Insight evenings, when Chris will be showing us more of his choreography and describing more of the ways in which he's chosen to embody the characters and events of Laura's novel into dance. These glorious ingredients will be fully cooked and served on the 2nd of June, when Like Water for Chocolate receives its world premiere here at the Royal Opera House. And you can, of course, visit the website roh.org.uk to book your tickets. So it's just left for me to ask you to join me in thanking our wonderful guests, Chris, Joby, Lynette and Jamie, and all our dancers and musicians. Thank you to Rolex for supporting the evening, and thank you to you, our audience here tonight. Good night.